Hi Prrnav, thank you for joining us on Beyond Limit Stories. We're looking forward to hear your story today. So, if you could fill in this sentence for me, if my life were a movie, it wouldn't be called.
That is me.
Tariziminte. Okay, so tell me, why Tariziminte?
That movie is about dyslexia, and that movie speaks about the story of a kid who struggled in school. And every time I watch that movie, I cry because that makes me remind of my core memories in school where I was struggling with Indian English, big time.
So, explain dyslexia.
I was not able to identify the right spellings on the same page. I was writing a spelling in 4 to 5 different forms, and every time I used to feel this is the right one.
As a child, how did you cope with, friends teasing you, teachers getting mad at you, parents not understanding?
So I am blessed that my parents could support me. They were understanding. They were confused, although why is this happening? Because no one knew dyslexia back then.
Hmm.
My coping mechanism was sports. I was so indulged in sports because it gave me that drive that I can do a lot of things without making these spelling mistakes. So I used to put myself in footballs, basketball, a lot of sports. I've been a sportsman all my life, and that was my coping mechanism. So I vented all my energy and anger into sports. That is what helped me cope. Kids don't fear failure. Until date, I believe I'm a kid inside my heart. I am 34, getting to 34 years of age, but I still think like a kid, and I don't fear failure. Why we stop thinking like kids is because we are ingrained in the generation that you should not fail. The moment you stop failing, or the moment you start to accept that we should not fail, you're not a kid anymore. Kids make mistakes, and that is where they learn from. Why kids think wild? Because they don't fear making mistakes.
Hi Prrnav, thank you for joining us on Beyond Limit Stories. We're looking forward to hear your story today. I want to start with a game, Beyond the Beat. So, if you could fill in this sentence for me, if my life were a movie, it wouldn't be called.
That is me.
That is the mean bit. Okay, we'll find out about that. That's interesting. Okay, so tell me, why that is the mean thing?
That movie is about dyslexia, and that movie speaks about the story of a kid who struggled in school. And every time I watch that movie, I cry because that makes me remind of my core memories in school where I was struggling with Indian English, big time.
So explain dyslexia a little bit. Most people just see it as you see a 2 and a 4 backwards, right? So can you explain the hardships that you went through?
For me, I was not able to identify the right spellings on the same page. I was writing a spelling in 4 to 5 different forms, and every time I used to feel this is the right one. So I used to very easily get confused in these spellings, which were E, I, and these kind of things in the spelling. Like all these small little changes, choti matra, badi ki matra, I, E, these things I was making blunder mistakes on. And every time I used to feel this is the right one. So in that movie, you will see that kid used to have all red marks on his notebooks. That is exactly how my notebooks were. I was a very good kid in maths and science. Phenomenal, always getting good marks in maths and science.
Okay, so it didn't disturb you there.
So no one could figure out what is the difference because maths and science were more logical, more related to a theory. So I could understand that. But for me, even I was making a lot of spelling mistakes in science. But in science, you get marks for the logic, for the correct theory. In Hindi and English, your marks are getting cut for all the wrong spellings. That is where I was suffering. So for me, writing the spellings was a big time difficulty, and reading, when there was a reading project in the class that you have to stand up and read a chapter, that was very, very difficult for me. I used to lose track of words. I used to fumble. I used to find difficult to form sentences. So that was.
Okay, so it was purely limited to the sequence of words or numbers. Doesn't have anything
Nothing to do with numbers. Just words.
Just words.
Language. I was having difficulty with language.
So
I still do.
So, okay, you still do. We'll come back to that in a sec. But as a child, how did you cope with that? I mean, friends teasing you, teachers getting mad at you, parents not understanding. How did you?
So I am blessed that my parents could support me. They were understanding. They were confused, although, why is this happening? Because no one knew dyslexia back then.
Mhm.
My coping mechanism was sports. I was so indulged in sports because it gave me that drive that I can do a lot of things without making these spelling mistakes. So I used to put myself in footballs, basketball, a lot of sports. I've been a sportsman all my life, and that was my coping mechanism. So I vented all my energy and anger into sports. That is what helped me cope. But the blessing was that my parents and I had a few personal tuitions later in life who could help me recover from this thing, because personal tuitions actually helped me learn slow. So in dyslexia, if you can learn slow, you can avoid making mistakes. So I'm blessed to have these people around. But had I not had them, and had I not found that coping mechanism of sports, I don't know where I would have been.
Like, I remember in the movie Tare Simin Pe, the kid also used to play sports, but he was teased big time by his friends. So, did you have same problem in terms of your schoolmates not?
No, because I did not face that problem because
You were
luckily
good at sports.
I was good at sports.
So everyone
Having
wanted
that
you on their
physique,
team.
yeah, I had a good physique for sports, although I was fat as a kid, so I did get bullied about being fat at times. And but that is where I learned a few lessons from my mother about understanding what teasing is. That was my life-changing lesson. But for me, sports was a place where I was performing really good, and that was my coping mechanism because I could do great things in the field. If I was poor in the class, I was doing great things in the field.
Oh, yeah. So tell us about how was your dyslexia diagnosed? How?
It is something which and is an observation still. It never got diagnosed because there were no counselors. I'm from a tier 2 city. I'm from a small city in Muzaffarnagar. In UP, it's called Muzaffarnagar. My father is an ENT surgeon. Being in a doctor community also, the psychological ailments are still difficult to identify. People neglected by saying that you're not willing to focus, you don't want to study, you're only into sports. That is why you're not performing in these subjects. But come to the identification that why is this kid only doing good in maths and science, then he should have not performed in that too if he's not willing to study. He is willing to study, he's not able to understand language. So it's still a problem. I still use a corrector for my spelling corrections. I still make a lot of spelling mistakes. I get confused. I need to have a very strong focus on the word to form that spelling. It is not very easy for me. It is still not.
So look, I have a neurological condition, which you know as well. So I had a coping mechanism. Well, I had an outlet as well, but for me, it was the creative arts. So that's something we have in common. But what would have happened if you didn't have that outlet? If you weren't good at sports, what do you think? How do you think you would have coped? How do you think people who don't have maybe the excellence in sports or the capabilities in creative arts, how do you think they can cope with a challenge? Something.
I think coping is something which involves finding that outlet where you can release all the pent up energy, because it causes a lot of frustration when you cannot do something. Anyone who's not able to perform at anything and is getting publicly demeaned or getting derogatory remarks will get frustrated. So for me, that outlet became sports. Had I not had that, I still don't have a clue what I would have done. But I've seen a lot of my friends go into dark spaces. They start smoking early in life, they get into all the wrong companies. For me, my company was becoming better and better because a lot of athletes you will see have really good lifestyle. So for me, that was a blessing that I could get into sports. But yes, for coping mechanisms, you need an outlet. For you used art as an outlet. I used sports as an outlet. The thing is, you have to be resilient enough to find that outlet. What works for you? Because God gives you opportunities, but it is on our observation to identify what is my opportunity. If you are neglecting it, if you are closing yourself down, one thing out of frustration or not performing at a thing, for example, in dyslexia or any disorder that you have, if you close down yourself, if your community or if your support system is not helping you open up, then you will be closed to all the opportunities. So I think you have to have an eye open to opportunities, and one opportunity is all you need to form a positive outlet.
I think it's very right. When you can do something, it forms a frustration. You need an outlet for that. And a lot of people with challenges I see struggle with the outlet because they're focused on the mainstream rat race. Be educated, get work, make money, excel, that sort of thing. So you had your outlet. So you turned dyslexia into something usable. Tell us about that.
For me, dyslexia, I personally feel I am differently wired in a way because I had very wild imagination. My ideas, I could, the one thing in dyslexia is breaking of patterns. You're not good at pattern forming. That is why you're not good at spelling formation also. But the advantage it gives you is that you can break out of your patterns. We get stuck in life because we get stuck to a pattern. For me, moving out of patterns was very easy. Hopping onto new ideas, having a complete change of paradigm or perception is something which is till date my superpower. I don't get constrained by limited beliefs. For me, it is very easy to step out of a pattern, and that is my superpower. I don't think this I could have ever had this thing had I not had dyslexia. Dyslexia, I feel spelling mistake is one system. It is a system that was designed by Britishers. I was making mistakes in an education system designed by Britishers for job creation. I don't care about it. I did not need a job. All I need is I can create jobs, I can do something I want to. But what I needed was to identify the positive, optimistic side of it. And that is my key skill. As a kid till date, I'm an optimist. I'm a big time optimist. Get me to any worse situation, I'll find you a good outcome of it. I can make you believe that there's a positive outcome even in the worst of situations. That is what my key skill is.
Okay, let's take a break. Let's play a little another icebreaker called Bolt Fire. So I wanna put you on your toast, and the first word that thing that comes to mind, I want you to tell me. Okay? Power.
Power. I think power is misunderstood. You want me to explain it or you want me to?
No, just give me the first word that comes to your mind. Rainbow, Godzilla, whatever.
Okay. So you want a character or you want
No, any just a word, anything.
Okay. So
Color,
let's
word, person.
let's do this again. Yeah.
Okay, ready? Resilience.
Sloth.
Growth.
Sorry.
Growth.
Growth. Bamboo.
Power.
Ego.
Growth.
Growth, I would say mountains.
Flower.
Flower, I would say butterfly.
Pain.
Pain, I would say blockage.
Beauty.
Beauty, I would say is perception.
And experience.
Experience, I think, is struggle.
Obstacle.
Obstacle is blessing.
And what is a blessing?
Blessing is an opportunity to learn. So blessing is a gift.
Wow, very nice. That was very enlightening. Okay, so let's go back to your life experiences. So dyslexia, like you said, is your superpower. And there's some of us, like you said, are blessed enough to see that how challenges are formed into blessings and can become a superpower. Tell us, so going back to the movie Tanya Zaminbe, in the movie you also see that kid has a very vivid imagination. So tell us about the imagination. In dyslexia, you have trouble forming patterns. What does that mean? Like square, square, circle, square. Is that you can creatively redo that again and again? Is that something?
So for me, imagination is something I've always enjoyed and was my something I really relished apart from sports. I have had a lot of imaginary things that I was doing in form of problem solving. Back in 2014, I was creating vertical gardening prototypes. No one could ever
Wow.
imagine a computer science guy doing that. I created a prototype with my gardener. I created it in using mesh, coir, and a lot of other things. And I have a complete presentation about it. I was pitching it to investors that I want to do vertical gardening because we were lacking spaces in the future. So a college kid, imagining that, okay, we'll be lacking horizontal spaces soon, so we need vertical gardening was very new. We have just been introduced to vertical gardening 2, 3 years ago. 2014, I was working on it. 2012, I have emails where I have email exchanges with Daniel Goleman, the father of emotional intelligence, and a lot of professors from Harvard, where I was talking about an R&D setup in India where we can work on mental health research. So for me, I did not shy from imagining very, very wild ideas, very grand ideas, like something which can be overwhelming. I did not fear from them. I imagine someone being bullied in school for Hindi and English and being having always getting derogatory remarks. I was inert to that because I had good family support and I had good personal teachers coming in, so that gave me confidence that I can do anything in life. So I was exploring my imagination. I've been exploring it for a very, very long time. I've done like I get me to an idea and maybe I can get you to imagine something that will happen in the future because I have that kind of wild patterns in my head. Like I can club things from different uh, paradigms to form a thing.
And
So
that's a very unique ability, right?
yeah, that is something because I have that gift where I don't get restricted to a pattern. I don't believe that gardening can only be horizontal.
Right.
I was willing to transform it to vertical. I was willing to use moss. Why only use soil? What are the plants that can grow well in a vertical setup? So you have to have that imagination, belief, and that kind of ruthless wildness in your mind where you can explore these ideas. I wasn't just imagining it, I was implementing.
So this imagination, right? It's part of us when we're kids. We all have great imaginations, but then as we grow older, we tend to lose those imaginations due to responsibility, due to restrictions, due to social norms, right? How do you think you're able to retain that? Is it just because of like maybe your dyslexic ability, or how do you think you're able to retain your imagination, your imaginative power?
I am able to retain it because I don't fear failure. Kids don't fear failure. Until date, I believe I'm a kid inside my heart. I am 34, we're getting to 34 years of age, but I still think like a kid. And I don't fear failure. Why we stop thinking like kids is because we have ingrained in the generation that you should not fail. The moment you stop failing, or the moment you start to accept that we should not fail, you're not a kid anymore. Kids make mistakes, and that is where they learn from. Why kids think wild? Because they don't fear making mistakes.
That's very true, but also, isn't it because of responsibility? As you grow older, you have responsibility for yourself, not to get hurt, for your family, for your friends. You're worried, I have to get a good grade, I have to look good, I have to be at the podcast at 4 o'clock, right? There's responsibilities. Doesn't that inhibit our power our ability to be creative or our need or want to be creative?
I think the thing is we believe life is linear. Responsibility means now responsibility has to be in every walk of life. I am very responsible when it comes to whatever requires responsibility, but responsibility is not to be implemented in your how you believe things can be. If there is a social setting, if I have to perform a certain way, I do it responsibly. I do care for time, but when it comes to imagination, when it comes to doing something new, I keep my responsibility aside because that requires imagination and creativity. And imagination and creativity by default involves failure. No one has ever innovated anything without failing. Tell me one person who has done or who has innovated a thing without failing.
Yeah,
So
very
these
true.
people don't fear failure. When they are in their laboratories, they're a kid experimenting on what they imagine.
Yeah.
Outside that laboratory, they are very responsible. That is how I treat myself. In settings that require responsibility, I have priority of responsibility. When it does not, I don't have a responsibility priority. My priority then becomes to innovate, to be creative, to be wild. That is what an artist does.
Okay, so like when I was diagnosed, I quickly turned to poetry again. It was my outlet, and I was for about 10 years. It became my superpower because I was able to do. I did really well in it, so it, boosted me. But after a certain age, like especially school age, I don't have time that much to devote to creativity and to that creative outlet. How do you segregate your time between like responsibilities and this is what I have to do, to make my life continue, and to, like you said, imagining things, and creating things.
For me, problem solving is the core vision that I have. Be it with creativity, be it with entrepreneurship, be it with podcasting. For me, I believe I am a problem solver, and I did my engineering also for that purpose. Engineers are by default problem solvers. So I use my engineering also to polish my skills of problem solving. I figure out something that requires some intervention or something where I can contribute and I get to solving that. That is where I innovate. And when I innovate, my responsibility is not to harm anyone. That is, there are certain ethics that I follow. I don't go wild in terms of harming people or harming things. Or it can also go like that. So there's an outer layer of responsibility and there's an inner layer of responsibility. So I'm in a social setting and when I'm directly there can be things which can impact a person directly. I am in the inner layer of responsibility. But when I am innovating or I have a problem to solve, right now I have a mental health awareness problem to solve, I am on the outer layer of responsibility. In the inside now, I'm trying to innovate to get to ideas which can scale up, which can reach out to more and more people. What can I do to make this better? That is where I'm a kid inside my heart because a kid will always keep on figuring out.
Right. Like Legos. I love Legos when I was a kid. So, okay, so you're also being entrepreneur yourself, aside from being an innovator. You have your own podcast, the Gut Feel Show, which which is partly focused upon well-being, and intuition and the relationship between the gut and the mind. So tell me how that interest came about.
So for me, I got interested in the mental health space when I started to recover and cope with dyslexia back in school. And then I started reading books on emotional intelligence and leadership back in 2010. This is after me understanding that, okay, I can also do well. I was about to fail. I've been passed by grace marks in half of my school education. After that, I got some personal tuitions. My parents got me to have tuitions for Sanskrit and English, and my life turned around. I came third in grade 10th boards exam. and everyone was shocked. Can this happen? Even me, myself, was shocked because I learned in a different manner from school. School was the problem. School wanted you to learn and rush. It was a rushing system.
Mhm.
Do it every Friday test, this and that. It was rushing me up. I did not go. Personal tuition, I performed so well that the complete school was shocked. My parents were shocked. That is when I started reading on emotional intelligence and leadership. I spoke to professors across Harvard, Stanford, tried to understand what is happening, what can be done. I have worked with animal assisted therapist. I did a course in that. I've done yoga. I went to Mysore, did Ashtanga yoga workshops, and I do yoga myself. So I was trying to figure out what all ways I used to cope in the space of mental health. There are dogs helping people. There's yoga helping people. There are therapies helping people. Therapists, psychiatrists. A lot of things were helping people out. That is where I started my mental health startup back in 2016. It was a tech company, which, being a computer science engineer, we created an ecosystem for people to talk to trained listeners. Because my core belief was that a lot of problems are happening because in the growing society, we don't have listeners around. Good listeners are missing. That is where we fall into trap of escapes like smoking, drinking, etc. So there were problems with that because paying capacities or paying behavior around mental health is really bad right now. So we were in losses. People don't want to pay for therapy. People still find it expensive, and there's this huge taboo and stigma still that this is something not for me. Although there is a huge underlying problem of mental health globally. That is where I started getting into podcasting because I've had these conversations all my life. Like 10, 15 years, I've been having these conversations with different walks, people from different walks of life, but it never got recorded. Being camera shy, I was delaying this. This was being prolonged. Being camera shy, I was like, मैं नहीं कर पाऊंगा. I will not be able to do it. Then I started it in 2023, did my first podcast, and I came to realize that, okay, these conversations can be very helpful for people, for awareness, for understanding from other people's life, their stories. And that is when I started working on awareness and inspirational stories for people to learn and improve their own life.
Okay. So you have um an intrinsic desire in mental health, and you feel this is the best podcasting is the best way and a probably most affordable way people can get help.
Yes. So for me, it is I'm trying to reach out to more and more people. Personally, I'm learning a lot. I've met such esteemed people so far that at a personal level, this is a lot of learning for me. So I'm gaining anyways, and I want people to also gain along with me.
That's interesting. So, I mean, usually when you have a challenge, as you know, when you're born with a challenge or you develop a challenge, most people get stuck in the space of, okay, how do I get out of this? Why did this happen to me? That's what I've been experiencing, right? A lot of people, and then when they do get out of it, I think you very rightly said, they're stuck in trying to run parallel to everyone else. So I think one thing that you mentioned is the ease. Doing things at your own pace will not just help society, but I think that's just a great piece of advice for people just to, if they focus on themselves rather than, oh, I want to do as good as him or what are my neighbors doing, I think that would, maybe
I
that's
personally feel that we don't have to get out of a problem. First
Mhm.
of all, we need to accept it. We
Right.
need to learn to live with it, and then we need to grow with it. Coming out by default is a wrong idea. Something that you have coming out of it will only always cause you pain because your mind is always focused on the outer things that I have to get.
Okay, wait, cut. What did you say? Accept it? Grow. What did you say? Accept it?
Learn from it and grow.
Learn from that. I think that's really great. I think the mindset now is actually what I said is it's a problem and we have to get out of it. But very true. You have to learn to accept it, learn to live with it. I think
That is how I grew with my dyslexia. I never feel I feel had I not had it, what would I have done? Like, my life would have been so boring.
yeah.
For me, this is something which made me and my life interesting.
I think that's one of the characteristics that makes a person unique. If you can if having that view that okay, my challenge is not really a challenge, but it's a different path to get me to where I want to go or beyond.
That is what actually Alma spirituality is. It is your own journey. Spirituality tells you that you as a person came into this life and this life is your journey. But our systems are designed to make us believe that we are part of a system, and if we don't work according to that system, life is a problem. That is where we start to believe that we are a problem or we have a huge problem because we have a preconceived notion of this society. We are thinking from this society's perspective. But what eventually a lot of people who get into spirituality say to you, they say that look inside,
Right.
look inward. Why are they doing that? That is what, if you actually start believing that, there's no problem in life.
I want to go back to something you said earlier about your mom. She said something to you when you were teased by your friend, when you were bullied, and that became a cornerstone for you. What was
That
that?
was a life-changing statement. So I was very fat and I was being bullied by a very thin kid in class, and he was bullying me continuously, and I got very angry one day. I was maybe in fifth grade or sixth grade. I threw him away. I pushed him away basically. He must have got hurt or something or the other. We basically did not fight after that. I just pushed him away. He did fall, everything. I went back home after the school, and my mom was talking to someone on the phone, and I was like, "What's happening? This and that." And she was apologizing. She was saying sorry, this and that. I went into the room, and my mom keeps the phone, and she's like, "Did you have a fight? This and that." I was like, "Okay, what the baat ye baat? Okay, yes, I had a fight." So that day, she sat me down, and she said, "If someone provokes you and you fight, you lose and they win. So our perception of fight, of beating someone or throwing someone and feeling that is a win, that's a loss. I'll tell you why. Because that person wanted to provoke me.
Yeah.
His idea, his frustration was to provoke me. I got provoked and I threw him away. He won, I lost. Although in my mind as a kid, I was feeling मैंने उसको धक्का मारा, I won, अब वो गिर गया, I'm powerful. That's a wrong idea. If you're inert to these situations, you're the winner. Because at the end, if this person is trying to provoke you and you don't get provoked, this guy will get frustrated at the end कि यार इसको कुछ फर्क क्यों नहीं पड़ता है. That is a belief. It was a mind-opening belief for me. For me, till from that day till today, I see fights and these situations very differently. I don't act. I don't react. I act now. Basically, that was my reaction to him. That is how we are wired, fight and flight, to survival instincts spike in. We want to survive, we want to throw things away, this and that. But if you act, that's a very spiritually awakened thing that my mother just imbibed me in that moment. You don't react, you win. You react, you lose. Since that day, I wanted to win. My winning was not to react.
So, in terms of emotional intelligence, right? Because that's what it kind of teaches or preaches, right? Right. So, where is that limit between? Okay, I'm not gonna have an outburst, right? Where's the limit between I'm not gonna have that outburst versus suppressing so much that it actually hurts you?
So you have to be intelligent about these situations. It's something you have to be intelligent enough to exit or learn to exit the situation that is pressing you. See, if you're in a locked room, that's a different situation that you're being pressed on, and this person is almost about to hurt you. If it comes to that situation, then you have to survive, then you have to save yourself. In that situation, definitely you will have to react to save yourself. But this was just limited to teasing. This was verbal teasing. Nothing was being pressed. I was not being harmed physically. Nothing of that sort. So in such situations, you can easily save yourself by being inert. Doesn't harm. Why do we have to react in every situation? Let's react wisely. Let's react in situations where it is really needed. Why are we only linear in life? Once we have learned reaction, we will want to react in every situation. That's so foolish, because why? If we have, if that means we're not intelligent enough. If I know how to react, I know how to save myself in extreme situations. Why am I wasting that energy in every situation?
Hmm.
In most of the situations, we can exit by not reacting.
Yeah.
Being inert, not saying anything, is a superpower. I tell people. People get scared of people who speak less. You must have seen.
Yeah.
In a room full of people, there might be people chattering. A person who doesn't speak can overwhelm people without a word.
So, are you a person that doesn't speak?
I speak very selectively.
You
I
choose your
don't
words.
speak all the time.
That's good. It's talking is actually a way to expend your energy unnecessarily. I experienced that firsthand. 'Cause I talk a lot. So tell me, you broke through of your experience, right? You were able to find the positivity and the negativity and turn it around very quickly. But those people who can't, uh, for other kids with dyslexia, what advice would you give to them if what simple advice would you give to them?
Before the advice, I would like to address it to the parents that I wish they become more supportive as soon as possible, because that is the primary condition for anything to anything to happen for that kid. So that being in place, parents being supportive, this kid in today's time with today's technology has enough avenues to find a good coping mechanism. There is enough. Back then I only had sports. Today's technology, be it Lego or be it anything where you can put your mind at, do that, learn to channelize your energy. And once you balance your disturbed energy, that is when you can start growing in life. No one ever grows with a disturbed energy. Can you plant a tree in a disturbed environment and expect it to grow? No. You want a stable. Do you see when people plant a tree, they're like, don't disturb the soil. Don't disturb the soil, let the seed sprout. So that is when in stable energies, things grow very well. So for this kid to grow, they need to channelize their disturbed energy, which requires parental support, societal support, and then a way to channelize your energy. I think that is how they
Okay,
grow.
so I think that's great advice. Learn to divert your mind, basically. Distract.
Divert it constructively.
Divert it constructively.
Divert it. People are also diverting it on to fun, looking at social media and watching just movies. That is also diverting the mind. I would say divert it constructively. And your diversion of the mind should bring out something. Be it origami. Do origami. Make a house full of origami. Have hangings of origami. That's constructive. Just looking at origami videos is distraction.
But I think it's necessary to distract before you get diversion. It's because if you look at yourself, you pretty much went straight to diversion. But most of us need a distraction, then we get ideas, and then we get
So we innovating with distractions. We get stuck with distractions. Because distractions today can be so enticing. The dopamine that you get by looking at movies and all these enticing content can be very, very lucrative for you to get stuck. So why I'm not saying that distraction should be removed is because we get stuck with distraction.
Can you shut up? Thanks, Paul. You're saying such interesting things. It's hard for me to keep track of all the things you're saying. I wish I had a pen. You said something when we were talking. What were you talking about? I don't even remember.
Distractions being something where
Something before that. When I asked you about your mother. the cornerstone of what you said. You're saying a lot of interesting things, Prrnav. I can't keep up with them. You're like, yeah, I've had a lot of interesting people on my show, but you are very interesting. Even when I came to meet you on your show, I remember the conversation we had it was pretty high up there, So it's very interesting. So back to your journey. Um, so like, what are your next plans? Because it sounds like you're always innovating. So even if your podcast, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, is that your baby? Is that something that you want to lay as your foundation? Mental wellness.
So that's a part of my foundation. My eventual goal is to influence people to understand failure.
To understand failure. What?
My idea of failure is very different in life. I personally feel failure is my best friend. All I've learned in my life, what you are listening from me, is all out of my failure.
Right. Well, you can't succeed unless you fail, right?
So what happens is we have learned as a generation to grow up and hide from failure. We're scared of failure. So for me, I'm using content creation as a way to communicate ideas around resilience.
Mhm.
Resilience is a skill that I personally vouch for because it is something which can take you through anything in your life. Resilience doesn't fear failure. Resilience sees a vision and works for it. Will find way, left or right, or any other way. Like hiking, for example. If you want to see a sunrise at a hike, my personal favorite hobby is hiking. Why I like it? Because left or right or straight, you have to find a way to reach on top.
Yes.
The hiking doesn't care about the path, it cares
Mhm.
about the top where you want to reach. So, resilience is also about that. If you want to achieve something in life, you have to be at it. You might not get it today, you might get it tomorrow, day after, but you will get it, or you will get it in parts. But if you have that resilience, I think most of the life becomes easier. For me, being dyslexic, my resilience only made me come at third in 10th grade. I was very resilient. I never stopped. I don't stop. If I have to get to something, I'm unstoppable. That is resilience.
Mhm.
And for me, this content creation is all to imbibe and at least give people some understanding where people who are fearing failure can understand that failure is a friend in disguise. It's a blessing in disguise. Don't fear failure.
Okay, so my question is, how did that, how did, I want to say inertia, how did you become so, uh, s- how did you become so, like, so close into yourself that you didn't let society or the system break you or tell you what to be?
So I wouldn't say I became closed into myself. I was in things that I did well. I was the most social person. I was very well known. I was known to be a very good soccer player. The complete school used to get me football to kick it because I used to kick it the highest in the school, like three times from a normal person's kick. My height was three times, and I was a shot put player. I have gained a lot of medals in shot put. So I was a very known, very popular person in things that I did. I was very, very popular. So I was very social. I never closed myself down, but I was very selective on not getting hurt. Very selective on not getting hurt by things. And was, I used to take things casually, which will hurt me. I did not take them to my heart. Had I failed in my one of the subjects, that's okay. For me, that was actually okay. My parents were at times were like, "How are you okay?" Like, it's okay. It's just an exam. I don't know how did this get to me, but I know that my mother and my mother's father, my grandfather, Nanaji, these two people have always been telling me a lot of moral stories when I was growing up. So let's get to that level. When I was a very young kid, I was exposed to a lot of moral stories. So my morale was anchored on these stories, which were optimistic, constructive stories, which were about how to see life, how to see life as a bigger lens. I got these learnings very early in life. My grandfather and my mother have been telling me these moral stories even when I did not understand language, maybe 3, 4 years old. So maybe it's in my subconscious
Maybe
mind.
that
So my
shaped your
subconscious mind is
outlook.
so strong that it doesn't get affected. Maybe
Mhm.
it's that. I believe it's that.
Interesting. So tell me one thing. I was recently asked a question, and I want to ask you the same question. What or who do you think is your biggest support or inspiration throughout your life?
My mother, the most resilient person I know. And yes, she's my inspiration.
She's your inspiration. So what like you told me about your stories and your mom's teaching what your mom taught you about teasing. Those were a cornerstone. But I'll tell you what my response was. They asked me about who supported me. Like, there's a saying like behind every successful man there's a woman. I I think behind if you ask me who supported me in my journey, it's everyone. Everyone has an input. It shapes you, right? To who you become. So there, of course, my mom also is my backbone, but there's not just, and maybe there's like 50, there's 20% more here and 10% more here, or 5% less here, but it's a culmination, I
Yeah,
think,
absolutely.
right? So I think it's important for everyone to understand it's the experiences that shape you,
Yeah.
right?
Everyone is contributing to it.
The stories you heard as a kid, they look how they shaped you. They made you so strong.
So what happened is why I said this as an answer is because I got that mindset that I have today is because of these small, maybe subconscious level learning that my mother was doing with unknowingly. I don't even know why she was doing that. But I think it was her. I don't know. Maybe mothers do that. I don't know. The thing is, it gave me a mindset which gave me the positivity that I have today. I see everything as an opportunity. I don't see failure as a fear. I have a lot of respect for failure. I welcome failure. I learn from it. So for me, everything, everyone has contributed. You're very right about it. For me too, everything I consider as a contribution. But had I not had that mindset of optimistic thinking, I might have not thought a lot of people have been a contributor. So I think that mindset is something that imbibed me on this thought process.
So yeah, I think you just have a great sunny outlook on life, Not letting fear inhibit you is something very spectacular and very extraordinary. There's been a large shift, I feel, towards mental health. At least people are trying. At least people are more conscious of, okay, like being at home, being with family, being with friends, recreation, self-care, self-love. You hear more about it, right? That's more awareness in the universe. So what do you think? Do you think we're going to continue on this path as a collective?
I think people definitely had good awareness after COVID because reality of death did hit people. People got a gist of what death can be, and it can come anytime from anywhere. So you must have heard this saying by a lot of people that if you start imagining that you will die tomorrow, you will start living. The moment you think that you're about to die, you start living because
Right.
you feel you're lacking on time. That is what happened. That is what COVID was. COVID made everyone feel that I will die. That is why people started traveling. That is why people started doing what they wanted to do because the fear of death just hit everyone globally.
I didn't think about that. That is so true.
Fear of death can only make you live life. We escape death. We don't talk about death. Because death is again a taboo and a stigma. These dark things like failure and death, we fear them, but these are the most beautiful realities of life. Death is the only thing that will make you live. If you remember that, you will start living.
Why do you think that death is a taboo and a stigma?
Death is a taboo because it is again failure. People think I died, I failed life. That is where I have a very, very strong motive to reconstruct the idea of failure. Death is failure. Ask people. People hide this idea. People don't talk about it. People don't want to get their diagnosis done. People don't want to get full body checkup done.
But how is death a failure? Death is
People
inevitable.
imagine that. I'm not saying death is failure. I'm saying death is the most beautiful thing. It's the most beautiful reality because it is a fact. It is the only fact of your life, to be honest.
That you're
If you
gonna
think about
die. That you're gonna die.
Yeah, it's a fact.
Then how does it make it beautiful?
Because it makes you live. Because right now, when we don't imagine death, we don't address death, we are busy in chaos. We are busy at times doing shit. Tell a person you have 10 days to live, he will leave every shit aside, meet relatives, do things they really wanted to do, and finish off those 10 days in the most beautiful manner. I bet everyone will do that.